All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 6 of the Pistons Territory podcast. We have a familiar face and a new face. We have Mateo back. RJ was fortunately not able to make it tonight. And then we have a new guest on the show, Tim. Tim, it's nice to meet you. You are a writer for Pistons Powered.
Correct.
Yes, if you just wanted to introduce yourself and say what's up to everybody.
Yeah, I know. I keep it short. I do write for Piston Powered. Been a longtime Pistons fan. I'm a little bit older than the other guys I see in the panel here. So I was born in Detroit. I go way back. I can remember Isaiah and Dumars and the Bad Boys winning championships, and of course the Going to Work Pistons, which you guys I'm sure probably remember them. I know I'm sure you're fluid in your Pistons history, but yeah, so I go way back, and creative person. I like to think I'm actually in recovery, so just being creative kind of helps me. And I was looking for something to do, and I bit off too much actually, but I'm trying to contribute to the Pistons Powered site at least every so often. So I appreciate you having me here.
Yes, awesome. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do the trivia tonight. But if we do trivia and you're on, I feel like you're going to do pretty well.
I bet you I will. I was pretty psyched for that actually.
Yes, maybe we'll throw in a question or two at the end.
All right.
Because that episode was really fun, man. We're definitely gonna do that again. I have like a lot of good questions. They're like a lot harder because like the first episode, the questions are pretty simple. These ones are like a lot more like
you have to dig deeper.
Yeah,
these, right? Yeah,
they're pretty
right.
random.
Yeah, hopefully I can make it.
But yeah, so just a couple rumors. There's a big draft rumor going around that we're gonna talk about at the end of the show. But Zion Williamson, with all the drama he's had in New Orleans, with the tweets from his mistresses and all that, Zion has been rumored to the Pistons. I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. I've seen some trade, packages that have been proposed. So I'll start with Mateo. What do you think? I was seeing like 5, the Pistons would trade like 5, Bojan Bogdanovic and Isaiah Stewart, and in return they get Zion. What do you think about the Pistons potentially going after Zion?
I mean, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is, what are we going to do with the front court? We already have a very loaded front court. So it'd be very interesting to throw Zion into that mix. And obviously in that trade, then you would consider possibly trading one or more of our current guys away. So I think that would have to be something that's considered, especially considering, he's a ball dominant player. He's a scorer. It's not like he's going to be a guy who we would trade for him to be out on the wing or just a primary defender. He'd be the main focus of our offense. So obviously if we were able to acquire Zion without giving up Cade or Ivy or Duren, I think I wouldn't be opposed to it is what I'll say now, because we're at a point where we don't necessarily need to keep building assets for the future. We can start working on winning now. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I've seen a bunch of different trade packages. I don't totally know exactly where his value's at right now, but I wouldn't be opposed to it if the price isn't too crazy.
Yeah. What about you, Tim?
I agree with Teo. If I had the chance to trade number 5, Bogdanovic and Beef Stew, I'd do it all day long. I think the Pistons are in a really good position right now, actually. And I agree too. I wouldn't want to give up Cade, Ivy, or Duren in that order, like Cade, Ivy, Duren, but I'd like to keep those 3 together. If you can add Zion to that trio, pretty much whatever the cost, I would probably go with it, because just that foursome right there, if they're all locked into contracts or likely to re-sign, because you'll have the cap space when their rookie contract ends, and you can keep that unit together for 5-6 years. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens. And if they don't, I'd rather lose with that team, because you really can't fault Troy Weaver at that point for having assembled that team. It's off topic a little bit, but Tom Gore is just breaking the bank to sign the coach. Like, it really seems like, again, I think they're in a good position. So what they do will be interesting. But yeah, I absolutely would agree to that deal.
Yeah, I saw like a 3-team trade where I think it was involving Charlotte, where I don't know. Basically, New Orleans would end up with the 2nd pick so they could draft Scoot Henderson. Charlotte would end up with 5, I think. Just like a 3-team trade. But I don't know. I think with Zion, my question would be, would he even want to be here? Like, obviously he's still going to be getting paid, but I think we want guys that want to be in Detroit. You know, Cade and Jaden Ivey, they made that known that they want to be here. They want to win here. We don't know if Zion's going to feel that same way. And then also you just have to address the injury concerns, which not being able to stay healthy. I did hear something about his contract where, you know, it's not guaranteed. So if he does stay injured, you know, the Pistons maybe aren't going to have to pay as much, but that's another concern with me. And then, you know, I would even question the fit as well, just with, you know, how good of a shooter is he really going to be? Is he going to be able to play off of Cade and Ivy that well? Obviously, Zion's going to need the ball. Those two guards are going to need the ball. I don't know. I'm leaning towards keeping the 5th pick, but it is really intriguing to think, you know, you have that, you know, Cade, Ivy, Zion, and Duren, and you keep all your future first-round picks. That is very intriguing, but I don't know. Am I just missing something here, or do you guys think the fit would be good and the Pistons could go somewhere with that core?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's Zion, and like you said, with the injury concerns, we don't totally know what a full season of Zion really looks like. We don't know what playoffs Zion looks like if that can become a thing, you know. So he is going to have to get healthy, especially if he's someone that we would want to consider longer term. We need guys who are going to play for us. We've already had a lot of injury concerns, and we don't want to keep going with that. We want to get guys who are going to play. So that's definitely something to consider. And then also to your point about him wanting to play there, I agree with that because he seems like the type of guy, especially number 1 overall pick, who would want to go to a bigger market. I mean, that just makes sense, right? And he already got drafted into New Orleans, which isn't the best scenario to get drafted number 1 overall to. And with the, you know, reports that he's not having a great time there, he's not getting along necessarily with the camp, whatever, it would make sense, in my opinion, for him to want to go to a bigger market and not a team like Detroit. And I kind of agree that at this point, we also want to make sure we're getting guys who want to play and want to compete for Detroit. So that's also an important factor. But either way, I think there's a lot to consider. So,
yeah. Did you have anything to add to
Yeah,
that?
I would say I'm not worried about fit. I'm not worried about health. I'm just worried about, I agree that we've built, it looks like from the outside, a good culture from the moment that Cade had the glasses on, you know, post-draft, and we saw Ivy like crying. He was so happy to come here. I don't think we want to disrupt that. I do think he did re-sign in New Orleans. It's a smaller market, so maybe I think Detroit is an upgrade from New Orleans. It's better that he would be coming by way of New Orleans than say by way of LA, New York, or Miami. He might be willing to give it a shot, but yeah, I think that's the lone concern I would have, John. That was a good point that you brought up, was how much does he really want to be here in the first place, if at all?
Yeah, I don't want to speculate on it too much. If it happens, obviously we're gonna go crazy about it. But it's been rumored, and I think we should talk about it because there's a real conversation to be had. We've seen with Tom Gores, you know, if he wants to get aggressive. I mean, I've seen people comparing it to the Blake Griffin trade. I don't know if I'd agree with that. I mean, they're the same position, but Blake was obviously, you know, near the end of his prime. Zion, you know, realistically speaking, hasn't even entered his prime yet. But I don't know. I think it's a rumor, and we should take it with a grain of salt. But you know, it's been rumored a lot for a reason because it seems like there could be a fit there. But the thing I wanted to get to on this pod, and what's really been I've heard a lot of, is the Detroit Pistons have seemingly fallen in love with the Thompson brothers. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I heard Cam Whitmore didn't have a great workout with the Pistons. Troy Weaver had a press conference today. He said basically, you know, he's swinging for the fences. He's not really looking for that guy that can fit in. He wants to take, you know, a star. He wants a star at number 5. And, you know, a lot of people are thinking that the Thompson brothers could be that. I don't know if I'm necessarily in that camp. But just what are your guys' thoughts on if the Pistons were to take, let's say, Ausar Thompson? Because I don't think Ahmed Thompson's going to be there. I've heard rumors that he might be going top 3. So if Ausar is the pick at 5 for the Pistons, what would you guys think about that? I'll start with you, Tim.
It's not who I want, but it could work. I do have a lot of faith in this regime that the Pistons have right now. I could see how defensively we need help, and that's supposedly his calling card. We hear about they both have kind of wonky shooting mechanics, which we definitely need some outside shooting. I spent all day watching like highlights As you know, it kind of really sunk in today. We're only 2 days away from the draft, and I wasn't there for Whitman's workout, but or Whitmore. But I think that like him and Hendricks are the ones that intrigue me most. So it would be cool to get a Thompson brother. It would be very interesting to see. We had some luck with Marcus Morris. I think he exceeded expectations. So the last time we had an NBA twin in town, they did pretty well. I'm not excited about it when I hear about it. Like I think going with the chalk and drafting Cam or using that in a trade to get someone like Zion would be what I prefer personally.
Yeah. What about you, Teo?
Yeah, I mean, I don't totally know how I feel about it. I feel like there's been just so much speculation and so much uncertainty almost about who we're gonna pick that I'm kind of I just want to see it happen at this point, right? Like I just want to see what we do. I want to fast forward to draft night. I mean, doesn't everybody at this point? But I would say in terms of Ausar, like I think the Thompson twins are both very talented. Obviously, like you said, I believe Amen's also going to go in the top 3. I think he's that kind of talent. And if we were to choose then his brother over, a couple of these other guys that we've been talking about for a while, that would definitely be an interesting conversation about like what changed, right? Especially considering the fact that there was kind of this thought for a little while that Cam Whitmore might be the pick. Obviously it's kind of leaning towards, I've seen a lot of Jarace Walker recently. And it's changing a lot, and that it normally happens on the couple nights before the draft. But I would say that I would be okay with Ausar, to be honest, because I like his fit in our lineup essentially as a starter in the future. And I like his athleticism. And my question that I think everyone has is about the Overtime Elite League and how his game is going to translate. I know Amen has the passing ability and he's a point guard, so that takes him to the next level. So what can Ausar bring for us, and what can he bring that's better than the guys that we'd be drafting him over? It would be my question to Troy Weaver, but I trust Troy Weaver and I'm looking forward to what he does.
Yeah, so this was my thinking, and maybe this is kind of just looking at the big picture is, does Troy Weaver think Ausar Thompson could be better than Jaden Ivey? That's my thinking, because, the Pistons, I saw this on a pod, is the Pistons won 17 games. Realistically, they're not contending anytime soon. So instead of taking fit, you take the player that you think is going to be the best player in the next, 5 years from now. Who's going to be the best player? Is Ausar Thompson going to be a better player in 5 years than Cam Whitmore? If you believe he is, then you take him regardless of the fit. Because at the end of the day, the Pistons were the worst team in the NBA. They need to get talent. And if they think Ausar Thompson has that potential, I don't think you can pass that up, just for fit, for a team that, like I said, won 17 games. So if that's the way they're thinking is, listen, they drafted Killian Hayes with the 7th pick. And they corrected that mistake. They could have went into the 2021 NBA draft saying, we have a point guard. We drafted a point guard. We don't need a point guard. We're going to take a forward or a big man. But they didn't. They took the best player available with Cade Cunningham. If they do that again this year, the best player available very well might be Ausar Thompson. And at that point, maybe there's a question to be had. In 2 or 3 years from now, when the Pistons are finally ready to compete, maybe there's going to be a conversation, Jaden Ivey or Ausar Thompson, who's the better fit next to Cade Cunningham, who's going to be the better player. And, they could very well move one of these guys. But I think at the end of the day, you need to get the best asset you can and maybe think long-term, who's going to be the better asset for you. And maybe there's a world where the Detroit Pistons, when they're competing for a title, maybe it's a backcourt of Cade Cunningham and Ausar Thompson, and not Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey. I think that's a realistic possibility if Ausar Thompson pans out the way, a lot of people think he can. Now, the shooting's a question mark, but I think the athleticism, the defense, the IQ, I think is all there. And he has a 7-foot wingspan. So, he's probably going to be a better defender than Ivey. Ivey's got better speed, but I mean, he could have a higher ceiling than Ivey. What are your guys' kind of thoughts on, Ivey versus Thompson and kind of their long-term outlooks? What do you think could be better for the Pistons? A Cade, Ausar Thompson backcourt, or a Cade and Jaden Ivey backcourt?
For me, I mean, it sounds a little crazy for me to compare Ausar and Jaden Ivey just because honestly, I haven't seen enough of Ausar Thompson, especially playing against competitive talent that we know is competitive. And so, but looking down long term, which is what you're trying to do, I think there's a definitely a conversation that his fit next to Cade ends up being better because of his defense, and that would potentially match up very well with Cade's offense, and that would be a pretty nasty duo. And especially because Ivy is also an offensive oriented player. So yes, it would be a very different lineup. And so I guess it would be more, what are you looking for, right? Are we looking for a more defensive backcourt? Are we looking for a more offensive backcourt? And I think right now we're looking to kind of do a little bit of a running gun offense. I mean, that's kind of what Jaden Ivey runs with. It's fast offense, pace, get down the court and shoot a lot of threes. And I think that's kind of the way the NBA is moving right now in general. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I got. I mean, I don't think that I can't confidently say that Ausar is going to be like, a better fit than Ivy yet, but I won't rule it out because he's supposed to be a top 10 pick for a reason. He's got talent, and I think his defense could really shine and really, really turn into an elite defender. But yeah, that's my take.
So I think it's certainly a possibility, right, that Ausar is better down the line. But again, I already brought it up once in this show. I think back to Ivy like crying, and we were talking about how important it is to have Zion here. We got this kid who really wants to be here, and I think he's going to be a monster in this offense. I think if we surround Jaden Ivey with shooters and put the right players around him, he's going to be fantastic. Well, yeah, I agree with you, John, in the sense that you're still in asset mode, not fit mode. At the same time, if I have a choice between like Ivy, Cade, and Whitmore, or Cade and Ausar, and then we're trading Ivy out and trying to bring in different assets to build around Cade and Ausar, I really like the potential grabbing Whitmore at number 5. I'll be that guy on this podcast where I'm a little bit of a cynic on that rumor that's going out there. Now, it very well could be true. I don't doubt that there's truth to it, but it's just not. It's not what I would do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you guys too. I still really want Cam Whitmore. I think he's a really good fit. I think his hand injury really affected his shooting, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it is all smoke and mirrors, but I don't. This is a rumor for a reason, and we've heard more and more about it. And I was just thinking, like, what could a Detroit Pistons lineup look like in the future if Cade Cunningham is the smallest player on the floor for the Pistons? Like that'd be pretty. That could be really interesting. But I do agree with you guys with Jaden Ivey. I mean, he wants to be here. We unfortunately didn't really get to see much of him and Cade, but I think a lot of Pistons fans want the Cade Ivey backcourt to work out, and maybe Ausar Thompson could fit into that 3 spot. We don't know about the shooting, but you look at the Denver Nuggets, all the ball handlers they had on their team, like Jokic, Murray, Aaron Gordon, Bruce Brown, all could handle the ball. Maybe that's where the NBA is potentially going, where you just have a plethora of guys that can all create shots for themselves and create shots for others. So maybe Ausar Thompson could even fit into that, and you could have sort of a big 3 with Cade Ivey and Thompson. But it'll be interesting to see. I think we're all just ready for the draft to be here so we can see what happens. I'm kind of thinking it's going to be Ausar. I kind of hope I'm wrong, but we're going to see what happens. But yeah, those were kind of the 2 main things we wanted to get to. Is there anything else you guys wanted to talk about or go over? I mean, I could hit you with a couple trivia questions before we get out of here, but did you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about or cover?
Well, I don't know. Should we make predictions for what happens? Should we make predictions?
Yeah. You got a prediction?
I just have a feeling for some reason that we're gonna go Jarace Walker if we end up with 5.
No,
I don't want it. I don't want it, but I just have some inkling that for some reason Troy Weaver really likes him and doesn't care about position or anything like that, and we'll go for him. That's just my prediction. Or he trades down. Those are my predictions. But what do you guys think?
I don't want Jarace Walker. What's your prediction, Tim?
I'll say that would be like the nightmare scenario for me, because what I see in him is maybe like just a potentially better beef stew. like I see a lot of overlap there in that skill set. And then if you have Walker, what do you do with Beef Stew then? Like, and I'm happy, I'm content with Beef Stew. I don't think they're just going to stay at 5 and make a straight up pick. There's so many moving parts in this draft, from all the way up to number 2. You've heard Charlotte connected to Zion and Scoot or I should say Charlotte maybe trading out instead of drafting Scoot. And then Portland at number 3 definitely seems to have that pick on the table. And even with Houston, when you look at what they have, and then like with Green, and if Amen is the best player at number 4, that's kind of a weird fit too, because I don't think those two would be a very good tandem. So Houston could be in a weird predicament. So I think this draft is going to be one of the craziest drafts we've had in a long time. And it starts with, oddly enough, the most solid number 1 pick in years. And yet everything after that, I feel like, is just, it could be crazy. But, I hope, I really like Hendricks a lot. I didn't have much of a chance to talk about him. I like him a lot. And I think if Troy could do something with like Bogdanovich and that number 31 and move back into the lottery like he did last year, where he came away with Ivy and Duran, if he could do something like that again and come away with a couple more lottery picks, Whitmore, and maybe something later in the lottery, that would be cool. I don't know if that's realistic or even in discussion or not. But so prediction, I don't know, just crazy. Just a crazy, unpredictable draft.
That'd be awesome. We had a comment from QT who said, Jarris Walker, so you draft when you if you want to hit a single. I mean, yeah, pretty much. He doesn't excite me. I don't think he has all-star potential. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be a bad player, but like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in his camp either. I don't know why, but there's been a lot of talk about him recently, and especially this last week. And amongst Pistons fans, I know fans don't translate to anything in the front office, but I don't know. It's just a random prediction I have. We can never really predict what Troy Weaver is going to do. So that's just one thing. We never really know. But I also would look forward to some trades. I hope Weaver does. I mean, he almost always goes with at least a trade or two, whether it's, draft pick related or moving up in the lottery, whatever. And yeah, the other thing I was going to ask about was, if we did end up keeping that 31st overall pick, were there anybody that you guys had in mind at that pick? I know it's not like a super exciting pick, but there are still guys you can get around that range.
Oh, I'll be honest. Outside of like the top 10, 15 guys, I'm really not too familiar. I know we talked about Imoni Bates a couple weeks ago, maybe him, but I don't know. I think a trade I saw was like the Jazz have picks 9 and 16. So maybe they would trade that for the 5th pick. So maybe the Pistons would trade down. But at that point, like if you're at pick 9, like who's realistically going to be available? I don't think either of the Thompson twins will be. I don't think Cam Whitmore will be. So you're looking at maybe Jarris Walker, maybe Anthony Black, maybe Grady Dick. But yeah, outside of like the top 10 or 15 guys, I'm really not too familiar with the draft. I know there's a guard. I believe his name is Carson Wallace. I'm a big fan. Yes, I'm a big fan of him. I think a team like Toronto or one of those teams that are picking late in the lottery. Obviously, I don't think he's much of a fit with the Pistons just because they're so loaded in the backcourt. But I think I'm a pretty big fan of his. But yeah, I really don't have any idea who we could look to at 31. I don't know if you guys had any names that.
So you'd prefer to trade that pick or use it in a deal? Most likely.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, what were you thinking? Did you have any names, Tim, or?
You guys froze up for a second, so I kind of lost you, but you're back. No, Bates was the one that came to mind. Just obviously the local ties, we're all aware of him. And I don't know that would be a good pick. I will say, kind of going back to the two threads, when it comes to Jarris Walker, I would take Ausar 10 out of 10 times, Ausar Thompson over Walker. Yeah. And I was not as you know, I was not an Ausar guy, but as soon as you compare those two, give me Thompson. 31, I feel like they won't make that pick. I just don't think they'll I think Weaver, when he does all his finagling and all his trades, at the end of the day, the Pistons aren't still making the 31st overall pick. And I also think it would be wise for them to move on from Bogdanovich, just because it's like that time in the development where he still has some value with so many things potentially happening in this draft. If they could get like another lottery pick out of it, even a future first, I think I would just let him go. So as these younger guys, as Cade comes back, we need more shots for these younger guys to develop. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the camp because of trading Bogdanovich because he's getting older. He could be one injury away from
irrelevancy, no
yeah,
value.
pretty much. And you did give him the 2-year extension. I mean, there is something to say for kind of his veteran leadership. I think there's a reason he's still on this team and they didn't move him at the deadline. I mean, maybe the plan was to wait till draft night. But yeah, and in the case of they just have a ton of money in free agency. There's a lot of forwards that they could replace him with. Like we talked about, like Kelly Oubre. There's rumors of Cam Johnson, Kuzma. So they could easily replace him and potentially get another lottery pick out of that too. I think that would be my dream scenario is make the pick at 5 and then hopefully get into the back end of the lottery or maybe just outside the lottery. But if I had to make a prediction, I think it's going to be Ausar Thompson. I don't know. I just feel like Troy Weaver is going to swing for the fences, and I think he's just going to draft best player available, and I think Ausar Thompson is probably going to be the best player available. There is a possibility Brandon Miller slips.
That's what I was going to say. What happens if Brandon Miller slips?
Yeah,
what do you guys do?
Because if
take him.
If a man goes in the top 3, then you're looking, well, what does Houston do at 4? Maybe they take Brandon Miller. But if they don't, then you got to have that conversation. And 100%. I heard he didn't have good workouts either. So this draft is going to be crazy. I don't know, right, man. But Brandon Miller versus Ausar Thompson, I think Miller's definitely the better fit. But did you see the Pistons taking Miller over Thompson?
Yeah, based on what Weaver said. If he's going for a home run and you have a guy that's been rumored as high as number 2 falls to you at 5. But I do think Weaver is the type to fall in love with players. Yeah, I think if he gets his eyes really set on someone and he wants Ausar, that's what he'll do. I think that just seems like it's a part of his DNA. Like he really zeroes in. The high upside thing is well established with Bagley and Weissman and all these. He does swing for the fences. That's just part of what Troy Weaver does. And he'll do that again in this draft, I'm sure. Like that seems to be his MO. Get the highest upside players you can. His philosophy could change as we have more of a team that's like in the playoff picture, coming off a season where it had the 6th seed. He might adapt that strategy, but I think this will be another swing for the fences draft.
Yeah, what about you, Mateo? Like your dream scenario? Because now that I'm thinking about it, to me, probably take like Ausar or Cam at 5 and then trading into the lottery and probably grabbing another wing, but trading Bogdanovich. That would probably be my dream scenario.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of right there with you. I think you grab best available at 5, whoever you think that is, and whoever that may be, because we have no idea. And then yeah, you try to work your way in to find another pick in the lottery or in the late first round, somewhere in there, and find another guy who can maybe contribute. And yeah, I would be totally fine with dumping Bojan. I mean, I agree with everything you guys said about him. It's time to move on, and he's definitely the oldest player on our team. So yeah, I mean, last season was kind of perfect for him. He got the opportunity to kind of display what he can do on a team that doesn't have anything to play for, really. And yeah, he showed he's a great scorer and can probably be a great scorer on another team as like the 3rd or 4th option. We don't want him taking up 20 points or more a game next year when we have Cade playing and Ivy playing and everybody there, So it's definitely a conversation that we need to have, and draft night might just be the night to let him go. So
I want to add that my absolute dream scenario would be Whitmore and Hendricks, where they take Whitmore at 5 and they somehow find a way to get around number 9. Hendricks is still there for whatever reason. And if you got to give up beef stew to do it, like I said, anybody but the big 3, whatever else you have to do with your assets, from the other decent role players to the picks in later years, they could come out with Whitmore and Hendricks, and I think they would just be loaded.
I was going to say, would you touch the future first round picks at all? Would you, or are those off?
I would.
Not next year's. I would not touch next year's. I don't know if Taylor Hendricks is. I don't know if he's a needle mover. I think he's a good fit on this team. I don't know, man. Because don't they have a first round pick that they already traded in the Isaiah Stewart trades that's tied up somewhere in the future?
I think it's like if it falls in the back half of the first next year, the Knicks get it.
Yeah.
It's like 1 through 18 and they keep it. So they're likely to have another decent pick next year. But at some point you just gotta go all in. And if you give me Ivy, Cade, Whitmore, Hendricks, and Durham as my starting 5, then I'll go with it. We got our new coach. And then it's up to Weaver to like kind of fill in. Because Hendricks, is he a needle mover? I think it depends where he goes, right? I think for us, as a big man, a 4 that could stretch the floor, I think he would get a lot of open looks from Ivy and Cade, getting him the ball out on the wing. And I think defensively, he would help us in a lot of ways. Like Duran's decent back there, but I think somebody like Hendricks would really help him. So yeah, that would be my dream right there, Whitmore and Hendricks.
All right, and we have a very pleasant surprise as Mr. RJ has graced us with his presence. RJ, thank you so much for joining us. Are you guys down to do the trivia, or would you guys like to save it for another time?
I got to bounce to pick up my son in like 15 minutes, but if you guys want to do it, like, don't let me hold you up.
We'll do 3 questions. We'll do 3 questions, and then we'll save the rest for another time. But before that, RJ, can we get your thoughts on? Have you seen the Ausar Thompson rumors? And kind of give your thoughts on if the Pistons were to take Ausar Thompson at number 5.
Yeah, I mean, I've been seeing a lot of people, especially throughout today, talking about getting him. I mean, I'll say it from the jump. I figured we was going to get one of the Thompson twins. That was kind of like, when I seen we was getting 5th, that was kind of like my first assumption. I'm like, all right, we're getting one or the other. So, I mean, my feelings haven't changed. I pretty much feel like that's the direction we going in. So, I mean, we'll see Thursday.
All right. And then just one more. Give us your dream scenario for Thursday.
Truth be told, I don't want to keep the pick. I really don't. I'd rather trade it. I know there is actually a few scenarios. I know there's some good trade down situations. I know like Utah was offering a package for like 9 and 16, possibly. That was a rumor. And then the Mavericks was going to give us 10 for with Hardaway included too. So like something like that, I'd be down for it. The one I really would be happy to see. It's not going to happen, but if they were able to pull off the Zion trade, I'm all for it.
Oh, boy.
I would be all for it.
Okay, well, you just answered the last question then. You want Zion. All right. Yeah, but we can do 3 trivia questions. I have 15, so I'll have to get a couple more for when we do a part 2 to that. Just to let you guys know, these are a little bit obscure. I had to go dig pretty deep for these. I think Tim is going to do pretty well. RJ, you killed it last time. Mateo's looking to bounce back. All right, so three questions before we get out of here. All right, question number 1. This is, like I said, this is pretty random. I'll be surprised if you guys get this. Who did the Detroit Pistons play against at the first ever game at Little Caesars Arena?
RJ.
Wow.
I only know because I was there.
Oh, okay.
It was the Hornets, though.
Yes, it was. I'll give you an extra point if you tell me if they win or lost. Like,
is that what we do? We say our name? Like, is that
yeah. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. It's all good.
Did they win or lose that game, RJ?
They won pretty convincingly that night. I think even Henry Ellison had
a Dude, Henry Ellison was a popular topic on the last trivia night.
That's why I threw it in there. Shout out Henry Ellison, man.
Mateo and Tim, did you guys know that one, or did you have a guess? No.
I just remembered this year's first game was against Orlando. That I do remember.
I remember that.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember a couple years ago.
All right. This is another pretty wild one. So, all right, it's a pretty long one. The 2016 offseason was remembered for the crazy amount of money NBA teams gave out. Who did the Detroit Pistons sign as their backup point guard in the 2016 offseason?
There's been so many.
Yeah, right. So this still like, I know like that's Andre Drummond's team. I feel like for a long time Reggie was the starting point guard. I don't feel like Ish got a bunch of money or anything. Tim.
Yeah.
I'll make Ish my guess then.
Yeah, it's Ish Smith.
Okay. All right.
You tell me, I'll give you an extra point if you tell me how many years the contract was.
I mean, if it was a lot of money, I don't know. It could have been like, I'll say 3.
Yeah, so it was 3. All right. So RJ's got 1, Tim's got 2. I'll do a 2-parter. So what do you guys? Oh, this will be a fun one. Okay. Ooh, I lost it. Okay. Who did Blake Griffin score 50 points against?
Teo.
Yes.
The Sixers.
Okay. And then for the second part, who did Sadiq Bey score 51 points against?
That was the Orlando Magic.
Correct.
All right.
I
got some points. Let's
Everyone's
go.
on the board.
Everyone's on. I want to keep going. How much more time do you have, Tim?
I got a few more minutes. I got about 7 more minutes.
All right, 7. All right, we'll try to squeeze in a couple more. All right. In the 2003 NBA draft, the Detroit Pistons selected Darko Milicic with the 2nd overall pick. Originally, what team's draft pick was that?
Oh, that's a good one.
I know. I was doing some deep.
That is a good question.
Oh, I should know this. Oh, man. I mean, who did LA beat? Oh, who was LA? I feel
no idea.
It's not like the Philly year that they could have beat.
Does anyone have a guess?
It's whoever LA would have beaten in the finals. I'm pretty confident, right? So, like, because it was the number 2 pick.
So the second.
And so I'm trying to think through it that way. Like the Lakers, who did they beat in their 3-peats? This would have been like the last time the Lakers won because they won the title Darko's rookie year. So the last time Kobe and Shaq won a title, who did they beat for that championship? If you can figure that out, I think you get the answer, but I can't recall it.
I'll give you a hint. It has nothing to do with that.
It's not it?
No, I'll give you. It's a Western Conference team.
How did they end up at number 2? Man.
I was going to say Charlotte. It's always been bad.
All right, are we giving up on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sacramento. No, that's when they were good.
I almost threw out Dallas, but that's not right.
All right, you guys all just want to make one guess then?
I'm going Warriors.
No.
Dang.
Sacramento? No.
Mateo, you got one chance.
Portland.
No, so it was the Memphis Grizzlies. I know, it was random. So I did the research. It was 1997. The Detroit Pistons traded Otis Thorpe to the Memphis Grizzlies for a future pick that turned into Darko Milicic.
Oh, and I'm thinking now. I was thinking about that backwards. I made that too hard because the Lakers, whoever they beat, would have had the second to last. I really choked on that one. Man, as soon as I dug deep, I was way off base.
But yeah, we'll save. I got about 10 more. We'll save the rest, and maybe I'll find a couple more for another time. Right. But yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for everyone in the comments. We got a comment from Troy. He said, "I'm loving the podcast. Keep up the good work." Thank you, everyone who tuned in, who's been listening on Spotify and watching on YouTube. Tim, you were great. I'm sure if you ever want to come back on, you're more than welcome. And, if we ever talk more trivia, I'm sure you're going to kill it with some of the older topics that we're going to have to dig in deep to.
Yeah, you gotta get some 80s and 90s stuff in there when you guys were still in the cradle. And then I'll be like,
oh, trust me, there is some. There's one from the 70s I had. So
okay,
you better do your homework. But yeah, we'll see you guys after the NBA draft. Maybe we'll do another show after the draft. But yeah, Tuesday nights is the place to be for Pistons territory. But yeah, that's all we got for you guys tonight. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, John. Good to meet you guys. Thanks for having me.